You said that in Compton, people get shot at for playing DJ Quik in their car sometimes.
I got shot at. We was going up Rosecrans and Central, and I was bumping this shit in my Cadillac, and we just heard pop, pop, pop. I hit the corner and kept pushing.
And remember, the Crips even came to kill me and DJ Quik at a funeral in Inglewood. The Compton Crips and the Compton Pyrus were not playing.
If you were a Blood or a Crip back then, you were automatically a magnet for chaos, especially in an era when things were completely out of control. And of course, even celebrities weren't safe.
The Compton Crips and the Compton Pyrus were not playing. And it doesn't take much to get you clipped.
Enter DJ Quik. He was one of those who not only stared death in the face, but also got caught up in some of the deadliest gang wars Compton had ever seen. At a time when bodies were dropping left and right, the streets were pure chaos. Let's dive in. So DJ Quik's longtime manager Stan Shepard once gave fans a shocking look into just how close hip-hop came to losing Quik for good. It all went down at a funeral of all places, a setting that's supposed to be about mourning, respect, and peace. But instead, it became the stage for an attempted hit on Quik's life. According to Stan, some Crips had disguised themselves as regular funeral attendees, blending right into the crowd. Their real intention was to kill him and DJ Quik. Stan even recalled it bluntly. The Crips came to kill me and DJ Quik at a funeral.
Remember, the Crips even came to kill me and DJ Quik at a funeral in Inglewood.
Now, here's the thing. Rapper High C was there with them, and the attackers mistook him for DJ Quik at first. But once they realized it wasn't Quik, everything spiraled out of control. Gunfire erupted, and instead of just going after Quik, the shooters turned their weapons on unarmed people who had come to pay respects. Panic broke out. People ran for their lives, and bullets were flying through a place meant for grief and silence.
And they pulled up to me and Crawford, and they thought Crawford, High C, was Quik. When they saw it wasn't, they moved a little bit to the side, and then other cars were coming through. And so everybody in the church was running out. There was gunfire everywhere.
But the most heartbreaking part was that Quik's girlfriend at the time was murdered in the attack. That loss hit him in a way that left permanent damage. Stan said the experience carved indelible scars into Quik's mind, so much so that he developed PTSD, plagued with recurring nightmares and a constant state of hypervigilance. For Stan himself, it was a turning point too. He admitted the event shook him to the core, saying the paranoia of living around so much death and violence changed him forever. He couldn't be the same person he once was.
It got so close to me that I had to redirect my life. I got paranoid. I was completely paranoid. Every time I would leave anywhere, it destroyed everything in my life.
Stan didn't sugarcoat how serious things were either. He pointed out that during those days, Compton gang politics were ruthless. In his own words, the Compton Bloods and Crips were not playing at all. And when he says not playing, he means it literally didn't take much to get someone killed.
The Compton Crips and the Compton Pyrus were not playing. These people will kill you, and it doesn't take much to get you clipped.
Stan even revealed that people would come up to him offering to take care of whoever he had a problem with for as little as $500. That was the going rate for a life in the streets back then. That's how cheap, how casual, and how cold-blooded things had become.
I have people that have come to me with $500 to ask me for $500 to kill somebody that I was having a problem with.
But to really understand why a funeral could turn into a bloodbath like that, you gotta understand Compton itself, the city that shaped all of this. See, Compton wasn't always the tough, concrete battlefield it's known as today. Back in the 1950s, it was actually quiet, calm, and mostly white. It was farmland, suburban vibes, a place where families were raising kids with backyards. One of the city's founders, Griffith Dickinson Compton, even set aside Richland Farms so agriculture would always be part of the community. But history had other plans. The shift started with white flight, when white families began leaving as more black families moved in, largely pushed out of other parts of Los Angeles by discriminatory housing policies. By the late 1960s, Compton had changed completely. The Watts Rebellion in 1965, which happened just a few miles away, was like the final nail in the coffin. From then on, the demographics flipped, and so did the energy of the city. The peaceful farmland vision was gone, and in its place came a tougher, more hardened environment where gangs, poverty, and survival on the streets became part of everyday life. By the time the 1980s rolled in, Compton had already earned itself a dark reputation, a new name that stuck like a scar, murder capital of the United States. And that wasn't just some dramatic nickname people threw around, it was backed by the numbers, and those numbers spelled blood on the pavement. In 1990 alone, the murder rate skyrocketed to almost 9,100 for every 100,000 residents. South Central LA was rough, no doubt, but Compton was on another level. As Mob James put it plain and simple, during those years, people were dropping like flies on both sides, and he was personally getting death threats left and right. The danger wasn't selective either. It wasn't just gang members watching their backs. Regular folks who had nothing to do with the streets were living under the same threat. That's how insane it was. You could be a school teacher, a kid, a mother. It didn't matter. You were always at risk. Drive-bys could hit anybody. Stray bullets didn't ask for names or sets. Turf wars cut straight into everyday life. Kids couldn't just be kids anymore, no playing outside without hearing gunshots echo in the background. And mothers couldn't close their eyes at night without fearing the worst, that tomorrow they'd be burying their sons. That's the weight the whole city was carrying.
Tonight, we look at the first layer of victims, the bystanders, the people caught in the crossfire.
Oh man, it ain't nobody gonna bring her back. It ain't nobody.
Then came the crack epidemic in the early 80s, and that's when everything went from bad to catastrophic. Figures like Freeway Rick Ross pumped crack into the neighborhoods. And overnight, gangs weren't just cliques fighting for respect anymore. They became full-on drug operations. Suddenly, these sets had money flowing in, and that money bought firepower. And we're not talking about just pistols. They had high-powered artillery, MAC-10s, Uzis, AKs. The escalation was insane. And as if that wasn't bad enough, the very people who were supposed to protect the community, the Compton Police Department, had their own reputation: treacherous. People feared the jump-out boys, cops who would roll up and harass residents without hesitation. But the corruption ran so deep that by 2000, the whole department got disbanded, replaced by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. That tells you just how broken the system was. Although there were attempts to calm the storm, programs like Gifts for Guns, which managed to take thousands of weapons off the street, but in the grand scheme of things, it was like putting a band-aid on a gunshot wound. The violence still raged. And at the center of all this chaos were the gangs, the Bloods and the Crips. Two colors that completely redefined Compton. Two colors that turned into life or death symbols. Blue for Crips, red for Bloods. Their roots trace back to the early 70s, around 1971 in Los Angeles. The Crips were first, born out of guys like Raymond Washington and Stanley Tookie Williams, who initially pitched it as protection, as a brotherhood. But over time, protection turned into domination. Tookie especially was known to rule by terror. The Bloods came after, not as an offshoot, but as a defense. The Peru Street Boys formed because they were tired of being pressed and brutalized by Crip aggression. They had to fight back.
Why are you guys Bloods? Why are you in the gangs?
Why is we in the gang? I guess because the area we grew up in, man. Everybody go in that area, man. Everybody follow the same line.
And once the lines were drawn, those colors, red and blue, became more than just fashion choices. They were markers. They were flags. And wearing the wrong color in the wrong neighborhood was basically writing your own death sentence. And the craziest part was that it wasn't just gang members who had to worry about it. Civilians who had no connection to the lifestyle could get killed for something as simple as wearing a red jacket or a blue hat.
A 13-year-old shot his father and sister killed because the boy wore the wrong color hat. A drive-by shooting in Stockton, the victim wearing the wrong colors.
Even music wasn't safe. Mob James gave a perfect example. One day he's driving down Rosecrans and Central, deep in Crip territory, in his Cadillac. He's bumping DJ Quik, a known blood. And in that split second, that song alone was enough to mark him as an enemy. Shots rang out just because of the music blasting from his car.
You said that in Compton, people get shot at for playing DJ Quik in their car sometimes.
I got shot at. We was going up Rosecrans and Central, and I was bumping my Cadillac, and we just heard pop, pop, pop. I hit the corner and kept pushing.
But in the middle of all that non-stop violence, there actually was a moment where peace seemed possible. They called it the Watts Truce of 1992. Just days before the whole city exploded during the Rodney King riots, these gangs, Bounty Hunters, Grape Street Watts, Hacienda Village, PJ Watts, met up at a Muslim mosque and signed an actual treaty. And this wasn't just a handshake in the street either. They modeled it after the Israel-Egypt armistice. For a second, it really felt like something was shifting. And it worked, at least briefly. The following year, gang-related deaths in LA dropped by 10%. That might not sound huge, but in a city that hadn't seen a decline since 1984, it was historic. They even held unity picnics, where rival sets came together, laughed, ate, and for once the community felt like it was healing. Mothers could breathe a little easier. Kids could actually play without as much fear. It was a glimmer of hope. But sadly, that hope didn't last. The problems ran deeper than colors and sets. Promises were broken. The system never shifted fast enough. Economic struggle, poverty, constant police harassment, it all chipped away at the fragile peace. And the hate was too rooted, too ingrained. Within months, the streets went back to red versus blue, bullets flying, funerals piling up. And when the war kept going, it didn't just take nameless soldiers. It started swallowing the biggest names in hip-hop. Take Tupac Shakur. His death in 1996 shook the world, but it was still tied back to that same blood versus Crip conflict. Tupac, Suge Knight, and Death Row had mob Piru ties, Bloods from Compton. And then came the infamous MGM Grand Fight with Orlando Anderson, a Southside Crip. That beatdown lit the fuse, and the Crips came for Tupac. The drive-by in Vegas ended it.
Trouble-plagued rapper and actor Tupac Shakur is dead at the age of 25, just about a week after sustaining 4 bullet wounds last Saturday night in Las Vegas.
Fast forward, and the story repeated itself with Nipsey Hussle. Decades later, in 2019, Nipsey, who was a respected voice and also a Crip, was gunned down outside his own store by another Crip.
Now to that breaking news overnight, Grammy-nominated rapper Nipsey Hussle shot and killed outside his own clothing store in Los Angeles.
His murder triggered another round of peace talks, a new push for unity. The landscape shifts with time, but the struggle between peace and war has never fully gone away. Now, circling back to DJ Quik, the world he was caught up in was already wild. But even before he was dodging death in the spotlight, his childhood wasn't much easier. Quik was born January 18, 1970 in Compton, California. He grew up on the west side, 436 West Spruce Street, smack in the middle of gang territory. Compton had already become a breeding ground for Bloods and Crips by then, so it wasn't surprising that the environment pulled him in too. He ended up affiliating with the Treetop Peru, sometimes called Treetop Bompton Peru or the West Side Trees, a blood set based in the northern part of Compton, just south of Rosecrans. Living right there in their stronghold shaped his identity, and later, it would seep directly into his music. Life at home wasn't any easier. Quik was the youngest of 10 kids. His father wasn't in the picture, left when Quik was really young, and he only saw him once in his entire life.
My mom sent me to go spend some time with my dad when I was like maybe 4 years old. He taught me how to make a paper airplane, and he left.
That absence weighed on him. Still, Quik found one thing that gave him light: music. For his 8th grade graduation, someone gave him a turntable. That gift became the spark. He started spinning records, experimenting with sounds, and slowly, his passion turned into his purpose.
And back then, mixing vinyl, you kind of had to have innate sense of rhythm to do that. I could put on 2 records and blend a 3rd record with it, you know what I'm saying, or overdub cassette with it and have 3 things playing at one time.
But by the time he was 16, life hit him with another blow. His family's house got foreclosed. His mother moved out to Louisiana, but Quik stayed behind in Compton, determined not to leave. That decision left him homeless for nearly 3 years. But through all of it, music kept him alive.
16 years old, going on 17, homeless. At this point, I'm just kind of going from apartment to apartment. I needed an address. That was the worst time of my life, actually. One of them.
It was around this time that he officially took on the name DJ Quik. And he wasn't just being clever with the spelling. He intentionally dropped the C to show his blood affiliation. And even without the C, the CK in Quik still stood for Crip Killer. Normally, that could have caused serious issues. But by then, Quik's talent was undeniable. His reputation in the streets and in the music scene was growing so fast that even were willing to overlook that small detail because they believed in what he was bringing to the table. By 1987, Quik was really starting to carve out his name in Compton. He hustled by selling his own homemade mixtapes around the neighborhood, and one in particular, the Red Tape, started building him a loyal following. People were taking notice. By the late 80s, all that grinding paid off when Profile Records stepped in and offered him a deal in 1990. That was the official start of his professional career. But here's the wild part. Eazy-E had also been watching Quik. He even tried to pull him over to Ruthless Records with a $1 million advance. But the timing was off. Quik had already locked in with Profile. It got messy fast, with Profile even hitting Ruthless with a cease and desist to keep Quik on their roster. Quik would later admit that signing with Profile was both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, it jump-started his career. On the other hand, they constantly shorted him financially, forcing him to fight for money he'd already earned.
Profile was a curse and a blessing at the same time. I mean, they put us out there, but they didn't pay us.
Still, Quik made his mark immediately. His debut album, Quik is the Name, was a smash. Songs like Toe Night and Born and Raised in Compton shot him up the charts, peaking at number 10 and eventually going platinum. But while Quik's music career was rising, his gang ties and fiery personality kept pulling him into trouble. In 1991, he had one of the most infamous performances of his career in Denver, Colorado, at the Event Center on East Colfax Avenue, a strip known for crime and heavy gang activity, especially from the Trey Crips and other local sets. That night, the Crips showed up deep, buying tickets and packing the venue. Once Quik hit the stage, they started taunting him. Instead of ignoring it, he fired back, throwing up blood signs while performing Tonight. Then he went even further by flipping one of his lyrics, changing "F it, let's shoot some crabs" to "F it, let's shoot some Crips." That lit a fuse. Things blew up when someone from Quik's crew started tossing 40-ounce bottles into the crowd, smacking one Crip in the face and another random fan in the jaw. Quik, not backing down, even poured his drink on some of the gang members in the audience. That was it. The place erupted. A full-on brawl broke out. Crips stormed the stage, and Quik and his crew had to literally run for their lives. 2 hours later, Denver police tracked him down at his hotel in Stapleton. He got slapped with a misdemeanor assault charge. And it wasn't just chaos on the road. Quik also found himself locked in one of the most legendary rap beefs of the West Coast, going head-to-head with MC EIHT from Compton's Most Wanted, CMW. That tension actually started way back in 1987 when Quik dropped the Red Tape. On the track Real Dough, he slipped in a line that seemed to take a jab at CMW. It wasn't direct beef at the time. Quik wasn't that big yet, but as his mixtape started circulating, the line got noticed, and MC EIHT wasn't about to let it slide. By June 1990, CMW dropped their debut album, It's a Compton Thang. Track 7, Duck Sick, was a clear clapback at Quik, with EIHT basically warning him not to act like some hero for the Bloods by dissing Crips on wax. From there, the beef was official. The shots went back and forth for years, but the breaking point came with Quik's diss track, Dollars and Cents. He hit EIHT with one of the most brutal lines in battle rap history. Tell me why you act so scary, giving your set a bad name with your misspelled name. EIHT, now should I continue? Yeah, you left out the G cause G ain't in you. Even Quik admitted later that when he wrote that verse, he knew it was basically game over.
Cause the G ain't in you. And I slid the pencil across the bottom of it, and I got up and walked away from the table. I knew that was it.
Things didn't just stay on wax, though. It spilled into the streets. During a death row after party, tensions between both camps boiled over into a fight. In the chaos, Kelly Jamerson from the Rollin' 60s Crips ended up losing his life. By the summer of 1995, the feud was still red hot. Then came the Source Awards on August 3, 1995 at the Paramount Theater in New York City. That night was already legendary because of Suge Knight's infamous speech that fueled the East Coast versus West Coast fire. But for Quik and EIHT, it was another battlefield. Quik got on stage and, with EIHT sitting in the crowd, performed Dollars and Cents right in front of him. Not only that, he added extra disses before and after the track, just to twist the knife. EIHT didn't react. And it wasn't because he wasn't angry, it was because he was outnumbered. Suge and the entire death row entourage were in the building, and EIHT knew escalating it could mean not making it out alive. But time has a funny way of changing things. After witnessing the devastating losses of Tupac and Biggie, even the hardest rivalries started to feel small in comparison. Eventually, Quik and EIHT buried the hatchet. And in one of the most unexpected full-circle moments in West Coast rap, Quik and Problem dropped their collab album Rosecrans in 2017, and guess who popped up on 2 tracks? MC EIHT. Hearing them together on Central Avenue and Funny How Dude's Gonna Change Things shocked fans but also felt right. It was proof that no matter how deep the beef, time really can heal wounds.